Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are your guides, as always, exploring the source material you share with us. Our goal, to take dense research, sometimes complex theological texts, and really turn them into concrete knowledge you can grasp. Today, we're doing something pretty ambitious. We're undertaking a journey way back, deep into the past. We're exploring nothing less than the elemental origin story of the first human, Adam.
Right, and the material our listeners sent in is, well, it's fascinating. A real array of sources here. These narratives, they draw heavily from Islamic theology, particularly the Quran. And what's striking is they don't just give you a vague sort of poetic account of creation. No, they offer specific, almost you could say technical descriptions. Descriptions of the actual material used to fashion Adam.
Exactly. It's not just from dust he came. It's much more detailed.
And what gets really compelling, I think, is how these ancient terms, words like earth and clay, seem to powerfully align or at least resonate with modern scientific concepts, specifically the element carbon.
So this isn't just a history lesson or, a purely theological discussion. It's really an investigation into that intersection, where faith meets the physical world, where ancient words seem to almost anticipate fundamental chemistry. It's quite something. Our mission today is very focused. We want to peel back the layers of maybe common understanding and really extract the specific, maybe even surprising details hidden in these sources. Details about the state, the origin, the final composition of that initial creation material. We're digging for the why behind the whats.
And it's so important, I think, that we move past those generalized summaries. You know, the ones you often hear in casual retellings, like just saying man came from dust.
Yeah.
It misses the richness.
Right.
Because these sources, they're far more precise than that. They lay out a multi-stage process. It involves collection, then purification, then transformation. It's quite structured. Our focus has to be on unpacking the specific language, the terminology used to describe that shift. From the raw, inert stuff of the planet to this complex structure capable of holding life. Human life.
Okay, let's dive right in then, because that precision you mentioned, it really is striking when you look closely. So the big question first. What exactly was this fundamental substance, the stuff Adam was made from? And just how detailed can these ancient descriptions possibly be about something so foundational?
Yeah.
Especially before modern chemistry even existed. Okay, let's start right at the bedrock, the absolute beginning. There's a really consistent theme across all the source materials provided. The fundamental, primary substance used for creation. It's uniformly described as earth. Or even more often, it's refined slightly to clay. This immediately places humanity's origin story firmly in the geological context of our planet, doesn't it?
It does. That consistency is the essential starting point. You're absolutely right. Humanity's physical beginning is explicitly rooted right here in the terrestrial, in the stuff around us, the material world. Adam was created from earth. Simple as that initially.
But it doesn't stop there.
No, exactly. The narrative, it quickly refines this concept. It suggests it wasn't just, any handful of raw, unprocessed dirt. It specifically names the material as Earth's clay.
Clay.
Yeah, clay. Which suggests a specific consistency, right? Malleability. A substance that's ready to be formed or molded.
And this brings us to the first really significant point of emphasis the sources highlight. It's about the numbers. This mention of the foundational material, Earth's clay. It's not just a throwaway line or some minor poetic detail. The sources are quite emphatic. This specific term, Earth's clay, is mentioned in the Quran at least 9 times in relation to Adam's creation.
9 times. And that repetition itself is intellectually significant, I think. In the context of sacred text, especially when a core concept gets repeated with that kind of frequency. 9 times. Well, 9 is often a number associated with completeness or maybe finality in some theological traditions.
Right.
So repeating it like that serves a powerful function. It's definitive. It goes way beyond just being redundant.
It's like underlining it heavily.
Exactly. It's a linguistic reinforcement.
Right.
A statement saying, this is categorically true. It basically instructs the listener or the reader, you must not forget the foundation. This is where it starts. Clay.
So, thinking about that repetition, what does constantly saying clay, specifically clay, suggest? Linguistically, theologically. What's the importance of clay compared to, say, just dust or even water?
Well, it definitely elevates the material. Think about dust. Dust is often seen as transient, right? Formless. It blows away.
Insubstantial.
Right. But clay has this unique quality. plasticity. It holds water, it can be molded, shaped, given a definite form.
Ah, the form-giving aspect.
Precisely. The emphasis on clay suggests the material was chosen because it could hold a physical shape. It could be fashioned perfectly.
Yeah.
So those 9 repetitions, they really drive home this idea that humanity is inherently a formed creature. A deliberate, structured vessel, perfectly molded from the fundamental soil of the earth.
Okay.
It wasn't just an accidental clumping of particles. That's the core principle the repetition is teaching us, I believe.
So the repetition underlines both things then. The material is common, it's from the earth.
Yeah.
But it also has this essential quality needed for giving form. It grounds the creation concept in a substance you can actually handle, shape, perfect.
Exactly that. It's making a definitive statement, both theologically and, you could say, structurally. The human form is intentional, derived from the Earth's own moldable essence. This kind of pushes aside interpretations where creation might have been, I don't know, amorphous or accidental. It's deliberate.
All right, that makes sense. Now let's shift from the material itself to the process described. The sources, they actually detail a pretty precise order of events. Adam's body, it says, was created by Allah, fashioned with his own hands, and then, and this seems crucial, he was left to rest for a time before the animation, before the soul entered it. What does that waiting period tell us? It feels quite informative.
Oh, absolutely. That period suggests maybe a time of completion or maturation of the physical structure itself. It implies that the perfect vessel, this clay form, had to be fully constructed, maybe even dried or cured in a sense.
Like pottery needs time to set.
Kind of like that, yeah. It needed the requisite structural integrity before it could house something as potent as the spirit, the soul.
Yeah.
So the form was complete, flawless in its structure, but utterly inert, lifeless.
A perfected sculpture, just waiting.
Exactly, waiting for the activation sequence, if you will.
And this feels like a necessary step, maybe, to stabilize the material, preparing it for what comes next, which is this massive ontological shift. Because according to the sources, when the soul does begin to penetrate the body, the material undergoes this radical, really rapid change. It transforms, it goes from clay straight into flesh and blood.
And this is the critical transition point. You could call it a moment of divine chemistry, almost. We're moving from the inorganic world's silicate minerals and clay, earth components, into the incredibly complex organic realm of biology, flesh and blood.
Wow.
And the sources, they really highlight this as an instantaneous event. Bang, it happens, enabled purely by the divine infusion of the soul.
The implication of instantaneous transformation is just huge, isn't it? Especially when you think about the timescales we usually associate with physical or biological development. Evolution, growth. This suggests a complete bypassing of those slow, gradual material processes.
It absolutely underscores the divine action, the sheer power involved in the process. This isn't described as a slow buildup of biological complexity over ages. No, it's the immediate conversion of basic planetary material into complex, living, self-sustaining biological matter.
It's hard to even conceptualize.
Think about the complexity needed just for that to happen. Molecules instantly assembling into cells, cells forming tissues, tissues forming organs, all happening in the moment the soul touches the vessel. It implies that the raw material itself, that clay foundation, it must contain the latent potential, the necessary elements for this incredibly rapid, complex transformation into life. It has to be convertible.
That structural necessity.
Yep.
The idea that the material inherently has the potential to become flesh and blood. That leads us perfectly into the next level of detail the sources provide, because they move beyond just earth or clay to focus on the origin and the diversity of that initial collection. Okay, so we've talked about the nature of the clay, its moldability. Now let's talk about where it came from, its source. And the origin story of the material itself, well, it's surprisingly global, isn't it?
It really is.
The creation started, the sources tell us, with a handful of dirt from the entire earth, not just local soil from one place, a comprehensive gathering of material from the whole planet.
And that detail is highly significant, both theologically and you can argue philosophically too, gathering a handful of dirt from the entire earth. I mean, just picture that. It means incorporating every possible geological variation.
Yeah, everything.
The red ochres from deserts, the black volcanic soils, maybe white sands from ancient seabeds, fertile river plains. You're collecting every mineral type, every metallic trace, every shade and texture the planet offers.
It's like a planetary sample pack.
Exactly. It represents the complete, comprehensive variety of the terrestrial world being condensed and used as the base material.
And the sources then explicitly connect this diverse global origin directly to the reality we see around us today, mankind. The variety inherent in that specific handful of dirt is cited as the reason, the specific reason, why Adam's offspring, why humanity has different colors, different temperaments, even different natures.
Which raises a really profound question, doesn't it? How can linking mineral and geological diversity to human character provide a theological explanation for the global variety we see in people?
Yeah, how does that connection work?
Well, the narrative draws a direct parallel. It's saying just as raw earth varies incredibly in color, texture, composition, some earth is hard, rocky, sterile, some is soft, dark, fertile. So too does humanity vary. In complexion, yes, but also in emotional stability, temperament, overall character.
Wow. So our physical differences, maybe even our behavioral tendencies, are literally written into the original elemental cocktail.
That's the implication, yes.
If that starting material was composed of, say, harsh, dark minerals mixed right in with soft, pale clays, then that whole spectrum of composition is somehow retained and reflected down through the lineage.
Exactly. It becomes a foundational explanation for human diversity that, importantly, simultaneously emphasizes unity.
How so?
Because we all come from that same single initial handful of material, one source.
Okay, right. Unity in origin.
But because that single source was itself incredibly diverse, containing all the earth's variety, the resulting offspring naturally carry and express those intrinsic variations.
So it synthesizes the idea of a global human family with the undeniable reality of global human difference.
Precisely. It suggests our differences aren't just accidental or purely environmental adaptations later on. No, they are elemental. They are intentional, woven in from the very start.
It's a very elegant way to frame and validate human variation, isn't it?
It is. It provides a theological grounding for celebrating diversity rather than seeing it as a deviation.
I want to pause for a second on that idea of linking physical color and texture to temperament. That feels like a really deep philosophical or maybe even pre-scientific medical kind of move.
It does have echoes of that. Ancient philosophies and medical systems like Greek humorism or Ayurvedic traditions often linked physical attributes to elemental compositions or balances.
Right, like fiery temperaments linked to, well, fire or dryness.
Exactly. Dry earth might be associated with a quick temper, maybe stubbornness. Moist, rich earth might suggest a calmer, more reflective, fertile disposition. In this creation narrative, the sources seem to suggest that those subtle mineral and chemical differences in the raw earth are somehow translated into the complexities of the human psyche, our inner natures.
So it's a kind of deep elemental inheritance that goes beyond just, say, genetics as we understand it now.
That seems to be the implication, yes. A link between the fundamental matter and the emergent character.
Okay, so we've established this diverse origin point, the handful from the whole earth. But Adam himself, the first man, wasn't created directly from this chaotic, unrefined mixture, was he?
No, that's a key refinement.
Sources say Adam was created with the extract of that dirt. Extract. That word extract, it really suggests a crucial second phase, doesn't it? A purifying phase must have happened after the global collection.
Absolutely. The term extract is critical here. It immediately implies refinement, purification, concentration. Think about raw dirt or soil. It's full of stuff, right? Water, decaying organic matter, airborne dust, random impurities, complex silicates.
Yeah, it's a messy mix.
Very messy. So, to create a perfected form, the narrative suggests you'd need to isolate the necessary essence, or maybe the foundational non-transient components required for life. The signal from the noise, perhaps?
So the purification process separates the essential from the incidental, the structural from the temporary.
That's how I read it. It's about getting down to the core building blocks.
If we think about it functionally, what would this purification, this extraction actually involve? Like what's being removed and what's being isolated and kept?
Well, purely hypothetically, thinking in geological or chemical terms, refining raw dirt would likely mean removing volatile components first. Excess water, for instance. Maybe transient organic debris that isn't part of the fundamental structure. Perhaps heavy, inert mineral compounds that are biologically useless or even harmful.
Getting rid of the dross.
Exactly.
Good.
And what are you left with? Presumably, the purest, most essential mineral base, likely rich in compounds that are relatively light, stable, and easily mobilized or combine precisely those elements that form the basis of organic chemistry. Carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen compounds, maybe?
So the extract is like a distillation, boiling the whole Earth's collected matter down to its most structurally viable foundational component.
That's a good way to put it. A distillation or a concentration of potential.
And this purification step, this extraction, this must be what takes us from the general concept of dirt, which explains the diversity, to the hyper-specific refined essence needed to actually build the form.
Yes.
Maybe this extract is what those 9 repetitions of clay were ultimately referring to.
Yeah.
Not just wet mud, but this pure, moldable substance ready for the next stage.
I think that connection makes perfect sense. The handful of dirt explains why humanity is diverse. The extract, or the resulting clay, explains what we are fundamentally made of, this purified, workable essence.
Right.
And this refined material, this essence of the earth, it sets the stage perfectly for the final, most detailed description of the material, which is where things get really specific and where the bridge to modern concepts seems strongest.
Okay, so we've tracked the journey, the diverse collection, the purification into a moldable essence, the clay. Now we arrive at what feels like the most specific, almost chemical description provided in the sources. The Quran, apparently in 3 particular places, specifies the exact nature and the final state of the material just before animation. It's described as black, burned, and reverberating earth.
Black, burn, and reverberating. It's a remarkable phrase, isn't it? Because it provides sensory data, actual physical descriptors that go way beyond just clay or earth.
Definitely. Black and burned.
Yeah.
What does that immediately suggest?
Intense processing, right. Exposure to high heat, maybe some form of combustion or a profound chemical change. It implies the volatile materials, the impurities, maybe the water content have been driven off or stripped away. It's been fundamentally altered by heat.
Okay, so black and burned point to heat processing. But then there's that third word, reverberating. Or sometimes it's translated as sounding or ringing. That feels like the key structural detail here. What does that imply?
That's a really intriguing one. What kind of earth reverberates or rings?
Well, not soft, wet clay, surely. That would just make a dull thud. A reverberating substance must be hard, right? Rigid, structural. Something capable of producing a sound, a resonance, when struck.
Absolutely. The traditional interpretation often compares it to the sound that hard-fired pottery or ceramic makes when you tap it. It rings.
Ah, okay, like terracotta.
Precisely. It implies the earth, the extract, has been processed, likely by heat, as the burn suggests, to a state of almost crystalline rigidity. It's gone from being plastic and moldable, like clay, to being structural, hardened, fixed in its form.
So the black and burned aspects confirm this refinement by heat, maybe removing oxygen, hydrogen, volatile organics. And the reverberating confirms the resulting structure is hard and resonant.
Yes, what you're left with is a hardened, perhaps more elemental structure.
So, putting it together, the body wasn't ultimately formed from soft, yielding mud in its final pre-animation state. It was formed from something structurally sound, dense, perhaps dark in color, and processed by intense heat.
That's the picture painted by black, burned, and reverberating earth.
And this specific, detailed structure, this is what the sources then link directly to modern elemental science.
Yes, and for me, this is the core intellectual leap that the source material seems to facilitate, or at least invites us to consider. The material described, this refined, processed, structural essence, it aligns almost perfectly with the known characteristics of the element carbon.
Carbon, okay. That alignment feels... well, it feels almost too neat to be accidental, doesn't it? Especially given those very specific descriptors. The color, the processing by heat, the structural state.
It does feel neat, but let's look at why. When you consider carbon in its common elemental forms that you find in the earth, things like charcoal or certain types of coal or even graphite deposits, what are its characteristics? It is intrinsically a black and burned substance, isn't it?
Yeah, charcoal definitely fits black and burned.
It's the residue of combustion, the result of organic matter being subjected to immense heat and pressure, often in the absence of oxygen. What's left behind is this black, relatively stable element, carbon.
So the ancient vocabulary seems to capture the appearance of elemental carbon, especially carbon separated from its original organic impurities through burning.
It seems to, yes. The description fits remarkably well.
Now, I have to play devil's advocate here for a moment. It's a compelling link, no doubt. But is it possible that this is just, a modern interpretation? Are we perhaps retrofitting our knowledge of carbon onto ancient language? What prevents this connection from being purely coincidental speculation? How strong is the case, really?
That's the essential critical question we have to ask. And I think the source material itself offers a way to evaluate that. It does so not by, magically revealing the word carbon, but by lending the physical description to functional necessity.
Okay.
The texts maintain descriptive accuracy, but it's the combination of descriptors that matters. The material wasn't just black dirt. Lots of dirt is blackish. It was specifically burned AND reverberating.
Right, the trio of terms.
That specificity, especially the reverberating part pointing to structure and hardness, is what makes the carbon connection so much stronger than mere coincidence, in my view. Think about it. Carbon, especially in its pure structured forms like graphite, is rigid, and due to its layered crystal structure, it can actually transmit vibration quite well. You could argue it's reverberating or sounding when struck.
Okay, I see. Soft clay is neither typically black, unless full of organic matter that would burn off, nor is it reverberating.
Exactly. The description forces us away from simple clay or soil and makes us look for a highly refined, structurally unique, heat-processed element. And carbon fits that description exceptionally well.
And then there's the functional necessity aspect you mentioned. That becomes undeniable when we bring in our current biological understanding, right? Humanity, all complex life on Earth, really is universally called carbon-based life. Our very existence depends on it. We're life made by carbon compounds.
And we really should delve into why. Why carbon? Why not silicon, which is also abundant in clay and earth?
Good question. What makes carbon so special?
It boils down to its chemistry, its atomic structure. Carbon sits in a unique spot on the periodic table. It has 4 electrons and its outer shell available for bonding. It's tetravalent.
4 connection points.
Right. And this allows it to form incredibly long, stable, and complex chains and rings. It bonds strongly with itself and also readily with other vital elements like hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, phosphorus.
The CH-on elements of life.
Precisely. This unique ability to form a massive, intricate, yet stable molecular scaffolding. That's the absolute prerequisite for all the major biological macromolecules. Think about the long chains needed for the structure of proteins, the complex rings in carbohydrates and lipids for energy storage, and crucially, the incredibly long, stable chains needed for storing information in nucleic acids, DNA, and RNA.
So without that robust, stable carbon backbone, the sheer complexity of life, especially self-replication, just couldn't happen. It would collapse.
It simply couldn't. The chains necessary to store and accurately replicate gigabytes of genetic information just couldn't form reliably with other elements.
What about silicon? You mentioned it's abundant in clay.
Silicon is right below carbon on the periodic table, also tetravalent. It can form some long chains. Silicates are everywhere in rocks. But silicon bonds and silicon-hydrogen bonds are much less stable, especially in a watery biological environment like a cell. They break down more easily.
So stability is key.
Stability and versatility. Life, as we know it, demands the reliability and the sheer combinatorial flexibility that only carbon chemistry provides.
And the sources you're saying explicitly draw this conclusion.
They connect the dots. The fact that we are carbon-based life provides a solid logical reason for the divine selection and use of that black, burned carbon from this earth in the creation process described.
So it shifts the description from just being maybe a poetic metaphor about earthiness to being about chemical precision, about selecting the necessary element.
Exactly. The divine intention, according to this interpretation, was to use the specific element absolutely necessary to build a complex, stable, self-replicating organism capable of consciousness.
Let's circle back for a moment to that word reverberating and its structural implication. It seems really important. If we accept the refinement process implied by extract and the heat treatment implied by burned, then reverberating suggests we might be talking about a highly structured, maybe even crystalline elemental form of carbon, not just amorphous soot.
That's a fascinating line of thought. If you burn organic matter, which could be the impurities in the initial earth extract under controlled conditions, reducing conditions, you get charcoal, which is primarily black, fairly impure carbon.
Okay.
But if you subject that to further intense heat or pressure, you start to achieve more highly ordered carbon structures.
Yeah.
The atoms arrange themselves more regularly.
Like graphite, or even precursors to diamond, maybe.
Potentially. The term reverberating certainly suggests the structure has reached a point of significant stability and density, something that can resonate. Graphite has that layered crystalline structure. Diamond has an incredibly rigid lattice. Both are highly ordered forms of carbon.
And you need that stability, that structured carbon, to build the reliable scaffolding for life's molecules. not the instability of soft, chaotic material.
Precisely. So the word reverberating might just be the ancient descriptor for what we'd now call structured carbon, the necessary framework.
That is. Well, that's a profound conceptual convergence, isn't it?
Yeah.
The ancient narrative detailing not just the element, but the necessary elemental state required for the construction of life.
It seems that way. But what's also fascinating and humbling is how the sources handle this. Even while presenting these compelling chemical connections that resonate so deeply with modern biology, the sources maintain a critical theological boundary. They state that, ultimately, only Allah knows the true nature of this black, burned, and reverberating earth.
So there's a limit to the interpretation.
Yes. It's a crucial balancing point. We can observe the physical properties, we can recognize the alignment with carbon's characteristics. But the text prevents us from reducing the act of creation entirely down to just a repeatable chemical formula that we fully comprehend.
So we can identify the likely elemental fingerprint carbon, but the transformative power, the methodology, the infusion of life itself remains firmly in the realm of divine mystery.
Exactly. It respects both the physical reality described and the theological concept of divine sovereignty and knowledge.
It protects the miracle, perhaps, while still providing evidence of the material's structural perfection for its purpose.
Well put. The material chosen was the most stable, most functional element available, prepared perfectly for the task. But the animation, the bringing to life, remains beyond our scientific grasp or complete understanding. It's an acknowledgement that while we might be able to reverse engineer the ingredients list, the actual recipe for infusing the soul remains exclusive.
This whole detailed process, then, it provides an immensely sophisticated view of human origins within this framework. We see these distinct phases, each with a purpose. 1, the broad necessary collection from the whole earth for diversity. 2, the purification into an essential extract or clay for moldability and purity. And 3, the final preparation of the core element, structured carbon into a black, burned, reverberating state for biological necessity and stability. This is not a simple poof, man appears narrative at all. It's a complex, ordered account with internal logic.
And that order, that logic, is what makes it so powerful, especially for someone trying to learn and understand it deeply. It ensures that every step described has a specific, identifiable purpose tied to the outcome. The initial raw material explains human variety. The extraction process provides the necessary purity, and the final elemental state provides the biological necessity and structural integrity. The sources seem to mandate that we view humanity not as some haphazard cosmic byproduct, but as a carefully constructed masterpiece, built intentionally from the most essential, versatile, and structurally sound element on the planet.
And thinking back to the clay repetition again, those 9 mentions, maybe they emphasize not just the material, but the whole process of molding and preparation. The time and care taken to refine the structure into that final, stable, reverberating state, ensuring the vessel was absolutely perfect before the animating force arrived.
That connection holds immense weight, I think. The simple, abundant earth wasn't used raw. It had to be subjected to significant refinement, symbolized by the burning, and brought to a state of structural perfection, crystallized, perhaps, into the reverberating state, before it was deemed worthy to house the human spirit.
So the process itself signifies the extraordinary effort or precision required to elevate the most common substance into the highest form of known physical life.
Yes, a transformation of the mundane into the sacred through divine processing.
And fundamentally, it links us back inextricably to the earth itself. We aren't alien visitors or detached observers. We are, quite literally according to this, the refined structural essence of this world. Our physical destiny is inseparable from the carbon element we're built upon.
That intimate link might also explain why that very initial handful had to come from the entire Earth. It wasn't just about grabbing enough carbon atoms, it was about ensuring that the elemental essence being extracted and refined was universally representative of the planet as a whole. We carry the signature of the entire globe within us.
The level of detail here, in an ancient theological text, mapping so precisely onto concepts from modern chemistry and molecular biology, it really transforms the narrative into something far more intricate and, frankly, intellectually stimulating than most casual accounts allow for. It forces you, as a reader or listener, to slow down and really appreciate the linguistic choices, the structural specificity.
Indeed. It makes you ask, Why bother including burned and reverberating if just dust or clay would have conveyed the general idea of earthly origin? The implication embedded in the sources seems to be that these details were included precisely because they're essential descriptors. They point towards the elemental necessity, the specific requirements for life's complex structure.
The idea, then, that the profound mystery of life is built upon the most ubiquitous structural element, carbon, and that this choice, this material state, was detailed with such intriguing specificity in texts written long before elemental tables or biochemistry existed. That's a truly stunning conclusion to draw from this particular set of source materials. Hashtag tag outro.
So just to synthesize that intricate journey we've traced through the sources, we started with the general concept of Earth, but the texts quickly focused our attention. We found the process begins, surprisingly perhaps, with this comprehensive gathering, a diverse handful of dirt taken from the entire Earth. And this serves as the powerful unifying explanation for the incredible variety we see in mankind. Our different colors, our temperaments, our innate natures. It all traces back to that initial diverse sample.
Mm-hmm. Then this raw, diverse material wasn't used directly. It was subjected to a purification process and extraction, becoming the Earth's clay, a concept so fundamental it gets hammered home through 9 repetitions in the Quranic text. This clay, this refined essence, was then apparently subjected to further transformation, likely involving intense heat, culminating in that highly specific structural state described as black, burned, and reverberating earth.
Right. And that very specific, multifaceted description, black, processed by heat, hard, and resonant, aligns profoundly well with the elemental building block of all known complex terrestrial life, structured carbon. So the sources seem to provide not just a creation narrative, but also a functional explanation for human diversity rooted in the Earth's variety. And simultaneously, a sophisticated chemical foundation for our physical necessity, pointing squarely at carbon.
It really is remarkable when you lay it out like that, how the specific vocabulary of the ancient text manages to describe the necessary structural component of life-stable tetravalent carbon with such, well, accuracy, emphasizing its black burn appearance from processing and its resonant, structured, hardened state. It absolutely transforms a potentially simple creation story into this multi-layered account, an account of divine selection, careful refinement, and achieving elemental perfection for a purpose.
So we started this whole deep dive by asking, what was Adam actually made of? And the final answer, according to these sources, seems to be simultaneously dual and maybe paradoxical. He was made of the most common, most accessible substance on Earth, dirt refined into clay, which was then further processed into the most essential, complex, and structurally sound element for building life, carbon.
The common and the essential fused together.
Exactly. So consider the profound implication of that duality for a moment. The mystery of life's physical creation isn't found, according to this, in some exotic, rare, otherworldly substance, but it's hidden right here in plain sight, refined out of the very soil we walk on every day. Does this mean that the secret to the most complex form of life we know is simply the proper, perhaps divine processing of the most common matter available?
The extraordinary emerging directly from the ordinary through refinement and intention. That is a truly provocative thought to end this deep dive on. Thank you for joining us for this really intense exploration into the elemental origins detailed in the sources you shared. We look forward to diving into your next stack of knowledge very soon.
And the sources we're drawing on today are, well, they're remarkable. We've got some deep research looking into carbon chemistry, its essential role in creation. Then there are these detailed narratives from ancient traditions about Adam's creation, his life.
The very first human.
Exactly. And then we dive into philosophy, the nature of the soul. It's 5 distinct stages, according to some traditions. And maybe the most astonishing part is this near identical consistency of creation myths, found across, believe it or not, 32 globally separated cultures.
32, that's huge. So the mission for you listening in is really to find the synergy here. We're looking for those aha moments, where modern science, like the chemistry of life in these ancient scriptures, seem to be saying the exact same thing about where we came from, physically and spiritually.
It's like finding echoes across time and disciplines. A potential fast track, maybe, to understanding how fundamentally unified the human story actually is.
Right, a shared beginning. And that unity, that brings us right to our core question for this deep dive.
Which is?
How does a black, burned elemental substance, something pretty common, found deep in the earth, how does that relate directly to a soul? A soul described as being able to travel the distance of a day and night, while you're just asleep.
It sounds like a paradox, doesn't it? Almost contradictory.
It really does. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start right where our sources do,
Hmm.
at the material foundation, the very basics.
We have to begin with the dirt, basically. The dust, the foundational element that makes, well, all life on this planet possible. Carbon.
Carbon.
It is, without question, the master builder of life as we know it. Nothing else comes close.
And the scale. When you think about the scale, the numbers are just dizzying. Our sources point out there are still 1.85 billion tons of carbon.
Billion.
Tons, yeah, it's still present in the Earth today. That's enough to cover continents, practically. It's an almost unimaginable reservoir of, well, potential life.
It really is. And critically, we need to understand how carbon looks in its natural elemental state. If you could purify it, look at raw carbon like charcoal or soot or coal.
Okay.
It's described directly in these sources as a black and burned substance.
Black and burned. Wait, that sounds like residue.
Yeah.
Like something left after a fire or intense heat.
Yeah.
Why is that specific description so important?
It's crucial. It ties directly into the creation narratives we'll discuss later on. But even just scientifically think about graphite or the char left when organic matter heats up.
Right, like burnt wood.
Exactly. The core carbon structure remains, and it's overwhelmingly dark, opaque, it looks burned. It's like the residue of existence itself.
Okay, so it's common. It looks black and burned. But carbon isn't just common. It has this unique chemical superpower, right?
Yeah.
That sets it apart from everything else on the periodic table. It's the ultimate connector.
Absolutely. We often take it for granted, but carbon's ability to form more compounds than any other element is staggering.
Why can it do that?
It comes down to its atomic structure. Specifically, it's tetravalent, meaning it can form 4 chemical bonds at the same time.
4 connections.
Yes. And it can link to itself over and over, forming these long, stable chains, complex branch networks, intricate rings. It's like the ultimate atomic Lego brick.
And this ability to link to itself allows for just exponential complexity. The sources say we know of at least 10 million carbon compounds.
At least.
But chemical modeling suggests the real number, the number actually existing in nature, is probably much, much higher.
Oh, vastly higher. And when you look at the carbon compounds we encounter every day, the variety is just astonishing. Well, carbon forms coal, right, a simple black rock. But it also forms diamond, the hardest, most brilliant crystal we know.
Polar opposites, really.
And marble, too. These are what we call lifeless, inorganic compounds. Our sources estimate we know roughly 600,000 of these inorganic carbon compounds.
600,000, that's a huge number on its own. But here's the switch, right? The moment carbon stops being just geology and becomes biology.
Exactly. We jump from that 0.6 million relatively simple inorganic compounds to a staggering 16 million compounds categorized as organic.
To see million.
Yes. These are the ones containing carbon-hydrogen bonds, and they are absolutely essential for biological life. That jump in number is the jump to complexity, to life itself.
Which is the fundamental reason why every biology textbook calls us what we are, carbon-based life.
Precisely. Our entire biological structure, DNA, proteins, fats, sugars, everything that makes up our physical bodies is built on a backbone of carbon compounds.
So it's the scaffold.
It's the scaffolding, the spine.
Right.
There's actually a definition of life out there that puts it very succinctly. Life is merely the bonding of carbon atoms with some other atoms.
Wow. Okay, so here's where it gets really interesting. Connecting this undeniable chemical fact to these ancient texts.
Right.
The Quran, as many know, often mentions the creation of humanity from clay or earth. That's pretty common knowledge.
Right.
But in 3 specific places, it uses a very precise, very evocative description.
Yes, and the description is black, burned, and reverberating earth.
Not just earth or clay.
No, it's highly specific, not fertile topsoil, something different.
And the scientific parallel here is just startling.
Yeah.
If elemental carbon is scientifically described as a black and burned substance, and our bodies are built on carbon chemistry,
Then the material foundation described in the scripture, that black, burned earth, it aligns perfectly with the only element capable of assembling complex life. Carbon.
it's not just poetic language then.
It seems to provide a profound scientific justification for that exact wording. We call ourselves carbon-based life precisely because of that black burned carbon from this earth. The creation material wasn't chosen randomly. It had to be the unique, versatile master builder element.
So the earth is the workshop, carbon is the uniquely chosen material. With that foundation set, we move from the element itself to the first individual assembled from it.
Atom.
Atom. The original man. He's established in these traditions as the single father of all humans. Doesn't matter who you are, king, beggar, poet, philosopher, villain.
Everyone.
Everyone. All humanity descends from this one single creation, formed by Allah, the sources say, with Earth's clay. And this specific point is affirmed at least 9 times in the Quran.
And what's fascinating is how the method of his creation is said to explain the incredible diversity we see in humanity today. It's not just a side detail. It's presented as a kind of genetic or sociological explanation.
Exactly right. We learn from a hadith, according to the Midi, that Adam's creation didn't just use a scoop of dirt from one spot.
No. It started with a handful of earth taken from the entire planet. Imagine that gathering a representative sample of all the soils, minerals, colors, textures from across the globe.
That's a powerful image.
Yeah.
The significance then is huge. This geographical diversity of the raw material.
The dirt itself, yeah.
Spanning all these different colors and compositions. That's why his offspring have different skin colors, different complexions, and crucially different natures, different temperaments.
Diversity is baked in from the very start. It's inherent, divinely intended, right at the root.
Okay. And the sources also lay out a kind of timeline for this creation process. It wasn't instantaneous.
No, it wasn't. First, Allah created the physical body of Adam with his own hands, a very profound, direct act of creation mentioned in Surah Sa'ad.
But this body, this clay structure, wasn't immediately alive.
Correct. It was left where it was created for an unknown but significant period, like an incubation.
How long?
One interpretation from Ibn Abbas suggests this period was 40 days, and something interesting was happening during that time.
What was that?
It was during this period that Iblis, Satan used to visit the lifeless form of Adam.
Visit it. Why? To inspect it.
Exactly. He was trying to figure out the nature of this new large creature. He apparently knew it was hollow. He'd knock on it, it would make a hollow sound. And he realized, okay, this thing is made from dust. It's mortal. He perceived its physical weakness, its temporary nature, but he couldn't discern its internal potential, the spirit or soul that would eventually be its strength. This inspection, this sizing up, kind of laid the groundwork for his later envy and refusal to prostrate.
So he saw the shell, but not the core. Then came the moment of animation.
The sublime moment. The soul was finally given specifically on a Friday during the time between evening and nightfall. The body turned alive.
And the very first thing Adam did.
He sneezed.
Sneezed! That's unexpected.
And what a beautiful introduction to life. His first words were immediate gratitude. Alhamdulillah, praise to Allah.
And the divine response. Yarhamukallah. May Allah have mercy on you. It's the basis for the response to sneezing used even today. A first dialogue of life, gratitude, and mercy. But the transformation itself from inert clay to living flesh and blood happened as the soul entered, and apparently a very human trait emerged instantly.
Yes, documented in Surah Isra, the inherent human impatience, what the sources call haste.
Haste. How did that manifest?
Well, this is a truly profound detail. The moment the soul reached Adam's belly button, apparently he felt the surge of joy, of life, and he immediately rushed, tried to stand up.
Even though
the soul hadn't yet reached his legs and feet, he literally couldn't walk yet, but he felt compelled to move to get going.
Wow. He couldn't wait for the process to complete.
Exactly. He even prayed, oh, Allah, give me the soul before the nightfall. He wanted it finished now.
And the sources explicitly cite this moment as evidence.
That indeed the human makes haste. It perfectly captures our immediate universal urge to achieve, to move forward, to finish things, even when we're not fully ready physically, spiritually, mentally. It's a core trait right there from the very first human experience.
That desire to rush ahead.
Yeah.
It's built into us. Okay, so Adam is fully animated, and then after the whole prostration event where Iblis refused to bow, his counterpart, Eve, or Hawa, was created.
Yes, as his partner. And specifically, she was created from the rib of Adam.
From his rib. Now, this detail, it isn't unique to this tradition, is it? This seems to be one of those points of cross-cultural convergence you mentioned earlier.
It really is startling. If you look way back at Sumerian mythology, one of the oldest recorded belief systems we have, the first woman created is named Ninti, and Ninti literally translates to the lady of the rib.
No kidding. The lady of the rib.
And the linguistic root might connect too. In Semitic languages even today, the word Hai means life or something alive. It links her name, Hawa, Eve, directly back to her role as the source of human continuation, of vitality.
Fascinating. Now, Adam wasn't just the first human. The sources are clear he was also a messenger, a prophet.
Absolutely, a prophet. And we actually have some specific detailed descriptions of what he might have looked like physically.
A portrait, almost.
You could say that. According to hadith compiled by Ibn Abi Hatim and Al-Hakim, Adam had a wheatish complexion. But here's the really massive detail. He stood 60 cubits tall.
60 cubits, how tall is that?
That's roughly 90 feet, the height of a towering date palm tree.
90 feet tall, that's immense. Almost unbelievable for a human form.
It suggests a grandeur, a scale far beyond modern humans, perhaps reflecting the perfection, the optimal state of the initial creation. It's an awe-inspiring image.
And the description doesn't stop at height. There's this incredible anecdote about Roman tapestries.
Ah, yes. This is a fascinating story. It comes from an account by Hisham bin Alas Umwi. He traveled to Damascus, apparently, to preach to the Roman Emperor Heraclius. And during this visit, he was shown a collection of tapestries. These were supposedly made of colorful silks, and they depicted the lineage of the prophets.
Depicted them like portraits.
Yes. And the description of Adam's image on these ancient Roman tapestries was incredibly precise. He was described as a good-looking man, slightly larger eyes, a noticeably hairy body.
Hairy?
Yes, and a thick, long black beard. His hair was also described as being neatly split down the middle.
That's very specific detail. What's the story behind these tapestries? How did the Romans supposedly get them?
Well, the narrative surrounding them is just as dramatic. The Romans claimed that Adam himself had prayed to see which of his descendants would become prophets.
Okay.
And these very tapestries were supposedly giving to him, showing these future prophets. They were then preserved in a special treasury. Allegedly, they passed through the hands of figures like Du al-Qarnayn and even the prophet Daniel later on.
Wow. Whether the tapestries are historically verifiable or not.
Right, that's a big question.
Yeah. The fact that such a detailed, consistent physical portrait existed and was transmitted across cultures, from Islamic tradition to potentially Roman imperial courts, it suggests a strong shared memory, perhaps a prophetic memory, of what the first human looked like.
It's certainly suggestive of a deep-rooted tradition.
Okay, so we have Adam created, Eve created from his rib. Then comes the expulsion from paradise after they ate the forbidden fruit. They, along with Iblis and the snake, were sent down to earth.
And our sources actually map out specific locations for their descents. It wasn't random.
Where did they land?
Adam is said to have descended in India. And interestingly, he landed in a posture resembling ruku, the bowing position in prayer. Hands on knees, head bowed down, like in humility or repentance.
India, okay. And Eve?
Eve descended in the area that is now Jeddah, in modern-day Saudi Arabia, which is, of course, still a major historical and religious site.
Right. And Iblis?
Iblis was thrown down near Basra, in modern Iraq. The description is vivid. He arrived with his fingers clutched tightly, his eyes fixed stubbornly towards the heavens, a final physical pose of defiance.
Defiant to the end. And the snake?
The snake, instrumental in the temptation, was thrown into Esfahan, which is in modern Iran.
So it's like the origin story is grounded geographically. A map for the beginning of human life on Earth, the life of struggle and striving. We've anchored ourselves in the material, the carbon, and the individual atom. Now, the big shift.
Metaphysical pivot.
Exactly. We have to transition to the unquantifiable essence that makes Adam and us truly alive, the soul.
And this is where we enter a different kind of territory. Before we dive into the spiritual dimensions, though, the sources are quite insistent we clear away some, well, pseudoscience clutter first.
Right. You mean the famous, or maybe infamous, 21-gram experiment pops up all the time?
It does, unfortunately. Duncan McDougall's experiment from 1901. He weighed dying tuberculosis patients, claimed an average weight loss of 21 grams at the moment of death, and suggested it was the weight of the soul.
Sounds scientific on the surface.
But it's fascinating history, terrible science. The sources are very clear. The experiment lacked proper controls, the sample size was tiny, the results were inconsistent, some patients lost weight, some gained, some showed no change. It fails every single modern scientific standard.
So the soul cannot be weighed. Definitely not like that.
Absolutely not. It's an urban myth in scientific terms.
Okay, so if the soul doesn't have mass, what is it? We have to turn to philosophy, to language. The ancient Greeks called it psyche, right?
Yes, psyche, which originally meant something like breath or air, recognizing its invisible, animating quality, life breath.
And the Romans?
They called it anima, which is the root of our word animation, the act of giving movement, life, spirit to something, like a character in a story. The core idea is something non-physical that activates the physical form.
But different belief systems have very different ideas about who or what actually possesses this anima, this soul?
They vary wildly. Christianity and Judaism, for instance, generally emphasize that while all living things might have some kind of life principle, it's the human soul that's unique, capable of reason, morality, and destined for eternal life.
Whereas other traditions have a broader view.
Much broader. Systems like Hinduism and Jainism often embrace the idea that basically all living things, from the smallest bacteria and insects up to whales, even complex plants, possess a soul, an Atman. It reflects a much wider sense of interconnectedness and ecological consciousness, perhaps.
So lots of different views, but maybe the most compelling philosophical argument for the soul's existence, its independence from the body, comes from the great Muslim scholar Ibn Sina, or Avicenna in the West.
Ah, yes. His brilliant thought experiment. Conducted around 1037 AD, supposedly while he was imprisoned, it's really a cornerstone for understanding the soul as a non-physical entity.
This is the floating man argument, right?
That's the one. It asks you, the listener, to perform an imaginative exercise. Picture a person created fully formed, but suspended perfectly in midair, in a void.
Okay. Floating, senses disconnected.
Completely isolated. All senses, sight, hearing, touch, taste, smell, are cut off. They're unaware of their own body parts. They don't feel gravity. There's zero external input, just floating in sensory deprivation.
Total isolation.
Total isolation. Now, the crucial question Ibn Sina asks is, would this person still be aware? Would they still possess the fundamental sense of, I exist?
And his answer?
An unequivocal yes. Despite the absolute isolation, despite not knowing their hand from their foot, the man would retain an inherent awareness of his own existence. He would know that he is, even if he doesn't know what or where he is.
Which leads to a breathtaking conclusion.
Exactly. This non-physical inherent sense of existence, this raw awareness, is the soul. It must be independent of physical dependency. If awareness persists without any sensory input from the body, then awareness itself must be non-physical.
It's an elegant, purely logical argument. The self is more than just the sum of its physical parts.
It's incredibly powerful, and his ideas were so influential, they spread through the Islamic world and into Europe, picked up and promoted by French philosophers centuries later in the 15th century.
So Ibn Sina defines the soul by its inherent existence. What about Aristotle? He had ideas about the soul too, didn't he? Much earlier.
Yes, over 1,000 years earlier. Aristotle defined the soul more by its function, its purpose. He believed the soul dictates how a thing lives, and he saw a hierarchy.
A hierarchy of souls.
Sort of. He proposed that plants and trees have a vegetative soul. Its function is just basic life reproduction, growth, nothing more.
Okay. Then animals.
Animals possess an animal or sensitive soul. This allows for basic needs, instincts, sensation, movement. They perceive the world and react to it.
But humans are different.
Humans, Aristotle argued, possess all that plus the rational or intellectual soul. This is unique to us. It gives us the capacity for higher consciousness, abstract thought, reason, morality. It allows us to know more than just trivial basic needs.
It's interesting how this philosophical hierarchy actually finds some resonance in prophetic tradition in the Hadith.
It does. There's a hadith confirming that animals do possess souls. Companions asked the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, if they would get spiritual credit, reward, for being kind to their animals.
And the answer?
He replied that yes, you get credit for the welfare of all those who have a soul. Every living being with a soul.
That's quite profound. It extends moral consideration.
Absolutely. He also specifically advised people not to hurt anything that has a soul, giving examples like not making roosters fight for entertainment. It directly supports the idea of souls beyond the human realm and our responsibility towards them.
Okay, so we have the soul as existence, the soul as function. And along with the soul came consciousness. The sources call consciousness one of the most beautiful and dangerous abilities of human soul. Why both? Beautiful and dangerous.
Well, it's beautiful because it allows for self-awareness, reflection, morality, belief. But it's dangerous because consciousness makes demands on us. It forces us to confront difficult questions, doubts, moral dilemmas. It's the source of inner conflict.
So.
It's what drives our moral compass, but also what allows us to feel guilt, anxiety, existential dread. There's a classic story that illustrates this beauty and danger perfectly. It involves a man who came to the prophet deeply distressed by his own thoughts.
What kind of thoughts?
He confessed that sometimes truly vile, intrusive ideas would pop into his mind, ideas completely against his faith, things he found utterly repulsive. He said he'd rather jump off a cliff than actually entertain or act on them. He was tormented by his own consciousness.
That sounds like a real struggle. What was the prophet's response?
Immensely comforting and insightful. He consoled the man by saying that his fear, his very distress and revulsion towards those awful thoughts, was actually the proof of your belief.
A proof? How?
Because consciousness is the faculty that registers moral dissonance. The fact that you abhor the evil thought proves the good, the faith that resides within your soul. If you didn't have that core belief, the thoughts wouldn't disturb you so much. Your conscience is working.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. Consciousness is the battlefield, maybe?
Oh.
Okay, to really grasp the soul's journey, we need the bigger picture. The sources mention 5 distinct stages the soul goes through, according to the Quranic narrative.
Yeah.
This gives a complete map of existence.
Yes, a framework from before life to after death. Stage 1 is the most mysterious, the most profound, the realm of souls. Alam al-Ra. This is mentioned in Surah Araf.
This is before physical existence.
Exactly. This is the life the soul lived before being joined to a physical body, a pre-existence where all future human souls were gathered together.
And something significant happened there.
Something incredibly significant. At this stage, all the souls made a divine promise, a covenant. It's often referred to as the promise of am I not.
What was the promise?
Allah gathered all the souls and asked them a single question. Alastu bi rabbikum, am I not your Lord?
And the souls.
They all responded, Bala shahidna, yes, we bear witness. This primordial covenant, made in the realm of souls, is considered the source of the fitra, the innate natural inclination towards belief in the one true God that all humans are said to be born with.
So our current life, stage 3, is essentially the testing ground for that promise we made before we were even born.
Precisely. It's the arena where we demonstrate whether we uphold that pre-life testimony.
Okay, that's stage 1. What's stage 2?
Stage 2 is the mother's womb. This is detailed in Surah Sajda. It describes the precise physical genesis of the individual human being. The soul's entry is timed very specifically.
How specific?
There's a well-known timeline described. 40 days developing as nutfa, spermzygote, then 40 days as an alaka, a clinging clot or leech-like substance, then 40 days as a mugga, a chewed lump of flesh.
That's 120 days total.
Exactly. Once this 120-day mark is reached, the basic physical form is prepared, and at this specific moment,
The soul enters.
an angel is commanded by Allah to blow the soul, ruh, into the developing body. And crucially, along with the soul, 4 fundamental things are written down for that individual at that very moment. Decrees that define their life's parameters.
4 things. What are they?
They are 1, their deeds, the actions they will perform in life. 2, their livelihood, risk, their sustenance, how they will earn and live. 3, their lifespan, the exact duration of their life and moment of death. And 4, their destiny, whether they will ultimately be among the blessed or the wretched.
Wow. All determined at 120 days in the womb.
Sealed at that moment, yes.
Okay. So stage 3 is obviously where we are now. Life in this world, Hayat Adunya. This is the period of testing, free will, action, the chance to live up to that covenant from stage 1.
Correct, our current existence.
Then comes stage 4, the transition that begins at the moment of physical death.
This is limbo, or the wait the Barzakh. It's mentioned in Surah Mu'minun. This is a transitional state, a barrier realm between physical death and the final resurrection. It's non-physical, and critically, once a soul enters the Barzakh, it cannot return to worldly life.
Cannot return. And there's a detail about death itself, about reaching that point.
Yes, a powerful concept. The sources explain that when Allah decrees a person will die in a certain place, He creates reasons, circumstances, needs for that person to travel to and arrive at that exact location where their soul is destined to be taken.
So destiny ensures you're in the right place at the right time for your departure.
It fulfills the decree written back in stage 2.
How is the actual separation of the soul described? Especially for a believer.
It's described with immense clarity and gentleness. The Prophet advised those around a dying person to gently prompt them to remember and say the kalima, the declaration of faith, La ilaha illallah. There is no God but Allah.
Why specifically that?
Because the goal is for the soul to leave the body with ease and comfort. The description used is beautiful, like sweat separating from the body or a hair being drawn smoothly from dough. The final moments should ideally be peaceful, affirmed in faith.
And there's an angelic welcome for the blessed soul.
A truly moving one. Angels approach the soul kindly, not forcefully.
What do they say?
They gently coax it. O blessed soul, come out. You are praiseworthy. You should be informed about fragrances and comforts from paradise. Your Lord is not angry with you. They repeat this encouragement until the soul exits peacefully and is then taken upwards, traveling through the different levels of heaven, greeted along the way.
Is there a physical sign mentioned when the soul departs?
Yes. It's mentioned that when the soul leaves the body, the eyes naturally follow its upward movement. This causes the gaze to fix upwards, the eyes rolling slightly. This was reportedly observed, for instance, at the death of Abu Salama, a companion of the Prophet.
Okay, so the soul enters the Barzakh, stage 4. What is its state there for a believer?
Once in limbo, the soul of a believer is said to be transformed. It becomes like a bird from the paradise, figuratively speaking. It dwells among the trees of paradise, eats from its fruits, existing in a state of peace and comfort until the day of resurrection.
So it's a pleasant waiting period.
For the believer, yes. But there is a serious warning attached to this stage, one that connects directly back to our actions in stage 3, life in this world.
A warning. What is it?
A soul might be held back. It could be suspended in the middle, unable to reach its place of rest in paradise if the person died carrying an unresolved debt or obligation of financial due, or perhaps a significant injustice committed against someone else that wasn't rectified.
So earthly obligations follow you.
Justice extends even into the Barzakh. Unresolved debts, especially financial ones, can impede the soul's progress. It underscores the importance of settling our affairs in this life.
Okay, that's stage 4. The 5th and final stage is, naturally, eternal life, either paradise or hell, after the day of judgment and resurrection. But even before we get there, the journey into stage 4 holds mysteries, like sleep.
Sleep is fascinating. It's described as a kind of temporary partial death. Surah says explicitly that Allah takes the souls at the time of their death, and also those who do not die during their sleep.
He takes the souls during sleep.
Yes. He then keeps hold of the souls whose time of death has arrived, and he releases the others back to their bodies for a predetermined term until they awaken.
But how the soul partially leaves during sleep and then returns.
That mechanism is a complete mystery, unknown to us.
And linked to this nightly journey of the soul during sleep, there's that deeply intriguing hadith.
Ah, yes. The one about souls meeting. It states that the souls of believers, during sleep, can travel vast distances, the equivalent of a day and night's journey. And during this travel,
They meet each other.
The implication is just extraordinary. Even if you have never physically met another believer in this world, your souls might already be acquainted. They might be interacting, communicating in the spiritual realm every single night while you sleep.
That's mind-boggling. So how the soul travels, how it leaves, what it is exactly,
Yeah.
it all remains fundamentally unknown.
Which brings us right back to that ultimate statement about its unknowability, the one given directly to the Prophet Muhammad when he was specifically asked about the soul.
Right. Abdullah bin Masud reported this incident. The Prophet was walking near Medina, using a stick, passing some ruins. Some Jewish scholars approached him.
And they decided to test him. They said, ask him about the ruh, the soul.
So they asked him.
Yeah.
And his reaction?
He paused, stood still, leaning on his stick. Abdullah bin Masud knew this often happened when revelation was about to come. After a moment, the divine answer came down, recorded in Surah Ezra.
What was the answer?
وَيَسْأَلُونَكَ عَنِ الرُّوحِ مِنْ أَمْرِ رَبِّكَ وَمَا أُوتِيتُم مِّنَ الْعِلْمِ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا. They ask you concerning the soul, say, the soul is by the command of my Lord, and of knowledge you have been given but little.
You've been given but little knowledge. That's the definitive answer.
It is. It marks the boundary of human understanding. The soul is from the command of God. Its essential nature is beyond our grasp. Our knowledge is purposefully limited.
But within that limited knowledge, there's still beauty. Especially in that one hadith you mentioned, the one connecting the pre-life realm of souls back to our relationships now.
Yes, my personal favorite, perhaps. Reported by Abu Huraira, it directly links stage 1 to stage 3. It states that in the realm of souls, before we were born, our souls existed together in groups, like assembled armies or communities.
In groups. So souls knew each other back then.
That's the implication. The hadith continues. Those souls who were familiar with each other in that pre-life realm, they recognize each other and feel a natural affinity, an attraction, a love for each other when they meet in this world.
And the opposite.
And those souls who were strangers or unfamiliar in the realm of souls, they tend to remain unfamiliar or even feel discordant when they meet here.
So that feeling, that instant connection you sometimes feel with a complete stranger, like you've known them forever.
That hadith suggests, well, maybe you have. Maybe you were introduced long, long ago in a different state of existence. Your current connection is just an echo of that prior familiarity.
That's a beautiful thought.
Mm-hmm.
It suggests this deep underlying unity, a shared origin that resonates even now, which leads us perfectly into our final section.
It's the universal message.
Exactly. The astonishing, almost unbelievable consistency found across those 32 isolated global cultures regarding how humanity was created.
The central argument here is powerful, and it's based on the idea of universal prophethood. If messengers were truly sent by the same God to all peoples throughout all times and places, delivering the same core truth,
Right.
then the foundational stories, especially something as fundamental as human creation, should be remarkably similar worldwide, even in cultures that had absolutely no physical contact or known influence on each other.
And the sources claim this convergence is real. Specifically, the author states they found no culture among the 32 they studied that failed to tell a story essentially involving God creating humans from Earth's clay and then blowing life or soul into them.
Let's trace some of this evidence. Start with the ancient civilizations, the cradles of recorded history. Sumer, the oldest we know. Their myths record the god Enki creating man, specifically as a servant, from clay.
Okay. Egypt, masters of monumental culture.
The Egyptians believed the ram-headed god Khnum, the potter god, fashioned human beings on his potter's wheel using clay from the Nile.
The Babylonians, nearby but distinct.
They told of the goddess Ninursag, or Mami, creating humans by mixing clay with the blood and intelligence of a slain god. Still, clay is the base material. The consistency in the Fertile Crescent alone is striking. Now, let's jump across the Mediterranean. The classical world. The Greeks, known for philosophy and mythology. Prometheus. He famously created mankind out of Earth's clay, with Athena breathing life into them. Then there's Zoroastrianism, the ancient Persian religion.
What do they say?
Ahura Mazda, the supreme deity, created Gaiomart, the first man, from clay or earth.
Even way up north in Scandinavia, Norse mythology.
Even there. In some accounts, the gods Odin, Vili, and Ve found 2 logs, or used soft clay in other versions, and fashioned the first humans, As and Embla, giving them breath and spirit. The core method persists across vastly different climates and cultures.
Okay, now let's cross continents. East and South Asia.
Yeah.
China, which developed largely in isolation from the Near East for millennia.
Chinese mythology tells of the goddess Nua. After the heavens and earth were separated, she found herself lonely. So she went to the Yellow River, gathered yellow clay, and molded figures in her image. She breathed life into them, and they became the first humans. She even taught them how to reproduce.
Clay and breath again. What about Southeast Asia and India?
The same core narrative is found in traditional Laotian religion, in various Mongolian folk traditions, and remarkably, across 3 distinct indigenous ideologies within India. The geographical spread is enormous.
But maybe the most compelling evidence comes when we leap across the Pacific, the Americas. Totally isolated from the old world.
Exactly. The sophisticated civilizations of the Andes and Mesoamerica, the Incas and Mayans, they spoke of their creator deity Viracocha for the Incas, Tepu and Gucumatz for the Maya fashioning humans from earth or clay.
What about North American indigenous peoples?
Many traditions exist, but the theme persists. Various North American indigenous stories involve creation from mud or clay. Further south, traditional lore in Guatemala and Mexico specifically mentions God making a body from clay, letting it dry, and naming the first human Quiche.
And this pattern stretches even to the most remote corners of the globe.
Astonishingly, yes. West Africa, home to countless spiritual traditions. The Yoruba people speak of Obatala, who was tasked by the supreme god Olodumare to create the first humans from clay.
Africa, South America. What about remote islands?
New Zealand, the Maori traditions tell of Tane Mahuta creating the first woman, Hinohuni, from Earth's clay. We find similar stories among the Dogon people in Mali, the Amaran tribes of Bolivia and Peru, even in Siberia, Borneo, among Alaskan native groups.
Alaska, and you mentioned Hawaii earlier.
Yes. The fact that indigenous Alaskans and native Hawaiians, separated by thousands of miles of ocean, cultures developing in utter isolation from each other and the rest of the world, both share this fundamental creation from clay myth. It just defies explanation by mere coincidence or diffusion.
It really strains credulity to think it's coincidence. Okay, so that's the first universal step, the clay body. But what about the second step, the animation?
Also critical, it's not just making a statue, it's bringing it to life. And many cultures explicitly detail this infusion of life, mirroring the scriptural accounts.
We heard the Maori in New Zealand say the first woman was created from clay and then given soul.
Right. And others are even more specific about the method of animation. It aligns directly with the concept of breath or spirit being imparted.
Like who?
Several African traditions, like the Ijaw people in Nigeria and the Iftaribes in the Congo. Also, traditions from the Hokkaido Islands in Japan and the Malagasy people in Madagascar. All of them tell stories where after forming the clay figure, God specifically blew air into it or blew breath into it, transforming the inert clay into a living human being.
Build the clay body, infuse the breath or soul. The sequence is consistent. And then there's that third, really specific, almost strange detail.
The rib.
The creation of the female counterpart from the man's rib.
We already mentioned the Sumerian Ninti, the Lady of the Rib, from thousands of years ago. But the sources highlight that tribes in distant Hawaii.
Hawaii again?
Yes, Hawaii. Separated by the largest ocean on Earth from Sumeria. They also share the specific narrative detail that the first woman was created from the man's rib.
How could such a specific anatomical detail, not the head, not the foot, but the rib, possibly arise independently and persist in so many radically disconnected cultures, it seems?
Yeah.
Statistically impossible.
It forces you to synthesize, doesn't it? What does it all mean when you put the chemistry of carbon, the prophetic history of Adam, the journey of the soul, and these 32 near-identical global myths together on the table?
It points towards something unified. The sheer persistence of the exact same narrative, core build from clay, animate with breath soul, create the partner from the rib across civilizations, separated by impossible geography and vast stretches of time. It seems to confirm one fundamental truth.
That the messengers, the prophets, the wisdom bringers, they were indeed many. They spoke different languages, lived in different eras, adapted the message to their specific cultures.
But the sender?
The sender was always the same. There has always been, the argument goes, one single, unified, divine message about human origins and purpose, ensuring that these fundamental truths about our physical beginning and our spiritual essence were made known, somehow, universally.
It's been an incredible journey today, really pulling these threads together. We started down in the elemental darkness, didn't we? Understanding carbon.
Its unique ability to form life, yeah.
And seeing that potential link to the very specific description of black burned earth in ancient texts.
Then we followed the story of Adam, the first human, not just a mythic figure, but described with such detail that immense height, the 60 cubits.
The prophet of inherent haste.
Right, tracking the moment of his animation, his sneeze, his first words, and even his physical descent to specific points on the globe, carrying within that first handful of earth the blueprint for all human diversity.
And then we navigated the metaphysical realm. The soul. We had to clear away the 21-gram myth and embrace Ibn Sina's powerful floating man concept, consciousness, as proof of a non-physical existence. And we charted those 5 distinct stages of the soul's journey, from that pre-life promise in the realm of souls all the way to eternal life.
But I agree, perhaps the most stunning takeaway, the thing that really resonates, is that global convergence. The fact that the most isolated indigenous groups on Earth tell fundamentally the same story of creation, clay, and breath as the most sophisticated ancient civilizations. That's powerful evidence for a shared beginning, a shared truth.
It really is. And as we close out this deep dive, let's circle back to that one particularly beautiful hadith. The one that links our spiritual pre-life directly to our relationships right now.
The idea that souls were grouped together in the realm of souls.
And that those familiar souls feel an attraction, the connection, when they meet again in this world.
So think about the people in your life right now. You know, your closest friends, your family, maybe your partner, or even someone you just met but felt an immediate, almost inexplicable connection with.
That feeling of just clicking, like you've known them for ages, even if you just met.
Is it possible that Hadith asks us to consider that your bond didn't actually begin in this lifetime? That maybe, just maybe, you were introduced long, long ago in the realm of souls. Perhaps you even travel together nightly now as souls meeting in sleep.
Could that deep connection you feel today be just a resonance, a faint echo of a long-forgotten familiarity vibrating across time and the veils between worlds?
It's certainly something to ponder, especially the next time you meet someone new and feel that instant, undeniable spark, that feeling of coming home. Maybe you have.